But he is our itil expert, and we are moving forward with high-velocity IT and organizations and people.
Yes.
And everything interrelated.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Well, remember, we did that little short prezo on, as part of our episode on the 4 dimensions.
The 4 dimensions.
And we promised you that we'll actually dive a little bit deeper into those sections because high-velocity IT obviously operates within those 4 dimensions, utilizing the service value chain as part of the service value system. But we definitely want to get a little bit more deeper into it, just not only for exam purposes, but also for, hey, what does this look like for me? And how do I get my organization to perhaps move? And remember that digital transformation from a organization that is primarily, I don't want to say purely analog, but more of a hybrid type of environment, and move it towards the wonderful world of digital. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So in HVIT environments, it's likely that the IT function will be an integral part of the actual lines of business that we would say. Well, and that's been true even since the mid-'80s, which is really when IT moved from the world of, science and military, governmental kind of a thing to where, hey, look, even the guy or gal at the front desk had it was a very large computer, but it was out there, sitting there on their desk, and so they had a computer, and they were typing things in, and you had data entry, and all these things started moving into, I would say, the realm of your public sector and private sectors, and out of just government and military and things like that. So there are obviously going to be IT functions that happen here, Zach, but the thing is that a lot of times they are treated from a, from an organizational standpoint, it's all centralized, right? Your email, we use Microsoft Teams here, unified communication systems, things like that. So really what we need to think about from a organization standpoint is what does that all mean? How do we use an HVIT environment or methodology to be quicker, faster, more efficient in what we do? So that will often mean there are multifunctional product service-based teams that are both having business-oriented and IT-oriented personnel. Big long sentence there from Axelos that we're kind of talking a little bit about here is that you got people that are IT focused and you got people that are they're using the power of IT to accomplish something, which makes sense. So when you talk about that, you notice that the centralized IT, which is what I talked about, your email, your voice over IP, unified communication systems, databases, SharePoint sites, all those things, you have a centralized IT department that usually handles that. And then in digital organizations, before a digital organization, if you had some like special area, you'd create like this sub-team that was product-based. That was all they handled. Well, now as you get more and more into this high-velocity environment, the digital transformation, well, guess what? All those things that used to be specialized are now part of day-to-day business operations. So that means maybe it makes more sense to centralize some of those digital areas. Because otherwise, you're having to hire how many more people? 2 more people, 3 more people, 10 more people. Well, wait a minute. If it's a part of a centralized system, perhaps you can do more with less. Not that we want to hire less IT people, but now those specializations allow you to also integrate, or they're integrated.
And we've said it a billion times, and we all know this, and you know this from Foundation as well, effective, efficient.
Yes.
It helps you be more effective and efficient.
Yeah, and again, it's that aspect of the environments are changing rapidly, and so, how things are handled. If you have a one point where you're going to from a people standpoint, staffing, the people that are running things, how it's organized, how it's governed, the roles and responsibilities. The more you centralize something like that, I can probably pivot a little bit faster overall, but not always. And so there are times when, of course, there might be platform-oriented teams that are, like I said, they are separate. You've got, okay, we'll handle all the unified communication, the database, the teams, keeping the network infrastructure up and running if you have in place systems and things like that. Even your cloud-based systems are monitored and maintained by people that's what you do. But, that high-end, high-speed, specialized platform that you're offering, that's where we might put in somebody or you have a specialized team, which might be different. They might actually get to operate, I don't want to say outside the law, but basically you've got parameters for the centralized team, but maybe the folks over here don't have to follow those same guidelines, those same parameters. Because, again, they have to move faster than somebody going, well, we're keeping the Exchange servers up and running, and by the way, our routers and switches and all their networking is working. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so if you think about it from an organizations and people standpoint, that's why they say it can be, if you are all in it to win it on digitalization and you're a digital organization, you might have more of those elements and those roles handled from a centralized environment. Otherwise, you might split it up a little bit.
Makes sense.
Okay. So one other thing that we can think about with this, so we can see our happy guys here all working on some sort of tech thing that they're doing. And so one of the organizational challenges, though, is I mentioned, you move more to a centralized digital platform, or if you split it. Well, here's the issue. What if you have a hybrid environment, kind of like what I mentioned, and some technology is dedicated just to what you're doing, but then some of it is actually shared. You share servers, you share a network, whether it's a network segments or whether it's, part of how things are, the Wi-Fi. How many times have you gone to a company where you've got people complaining about the Wi-Fi speeds? Or,
I can relate.
Okay, and then what happens? Finger pointing, right? Well, it's that development team. They're doing all this stuff, and meanwhile, I'm just trying to get some sales done and all this stuff. Well, guess what? Again, now you're struggling because you're now sharing technology, sharing platforms, but we'll talk about that when we get to information and technology as well, but here it's now about the roles of, well, who gets to use it? Who has priority? Maybe it's going to be one of those things, Zach, where, and you and I, as we prepare and get ready for these episodes and the things that we do, I have some duties that I have to do. You have some duties that you have to do. And, of course, sometimes, though, we're using perhaps maybe the same equipment. Or we have to share a slide deck, or we have to do something. Now, that's kind of oversimplifying it a little bit, but at the same point, well, who gets first crack? Who gets first shot at it? Who takes priority?
You.
Yeah, correct answer. In certain things, though, especially when we start getting into the project management stuff, hey, what? I don't touch that stuff. That's Zach. But it's the same, maybe production board that we're working on. Well, who overrides what? So there's a lot of these areas where you have to look at that in a hybrid environment. We would say now take it into this HVIT environment where you've got certain technology, you've got certain things that are shared, but certain things that obviously, that team is the only one that gets to touch that particular load of equipment.
And we've talked about this before also. This is not a one-size-fits-all.
No.
That's why they're saying some, or maybe the organization is one that would use a hybrid environment. It seems to me that would make an awful lot of sense. You would cut a few costs that way anyway, right?
Yeah, and the issue, of course, is that how do you manage it? Which is why, again, with that organization, we don't ignore the way the organization is put together, who has certain roles, who has certain responsibilities. So within product service-oriented teams, there are no service-level agreements between business and IT because business and IT are part of the same team.
Yes.
So if you think about it, we used to have in ITIL, they call them OLAs, Operational Level Agreements. So this is back in ITIL version 3, 2011, Actually, I think it was actually back in version 2 as well.
Are OLAs still in effect?
Well, that's the thing, is in the official ITIL 4 information, they don't really talk about them anymore.
Oh.
So what they'll typically refer to internal SLAs, internal service level agreements. Well, here's the issue. When you have a product service team, and you've got people that are technical, and then people that are designing, and you maybe have some marketing people, well, guess what? You don't have service level agreements between the business side of things and the IT side of things. That's very helpful in a more provider-consumer environment because then you have a business department that utilizes an internal team. You can use an operational level agreement saying, we will be able to do this, that, or the other and maintain X, Y, and Z. So again, how do you build your organization? You need to take into consideration, some of these things. So IT practitioners, so what, right? The high-velocity IT. IT practitioners in high-velocity IT environments often work at the same physical location as their non-IT coworkers. All right? Again, who gets access to what, when, where, how? Now, we're not here to tell you exactly how to do that.
There would have to be some kind of a delegation from leadership at that point, right?
Yeah, and again, from the organization. So from a strategic standpoint, you would look at, well, what is the most important thing here? We are now moving into a high-velocity environment. We are going to have product teams or platform teams that are going to be doing things rapidly. And, the technical part of the team or the IT part of the team is going to be working with the non-IT part of the team. And so how does that all roll out? You have to define it up front, which is why, again, it's a dimension that we have to consider, even in the world here of high-velocity IT.
Marvelous. Another great episode. Thank you, Chris, for all the information, organizations, and people. Did you enjoy it? I think you did.